And to give you a bit of background, this is the lightest production electric bike on the market at 16 kilos. Okay. The ethos of the GoCycle is it's been designed by an ex-Formula 1 engineer using only the best possible materials. So it's injection molded magnesium alloy, which ultimately results in it being very, very light and very strong. It's also one of the first electric bikes to be really designed from a clean piece of paper. So around the motor and the battery. More often than not, electric bikes are conventional bicycles with motors and batteries very much sort of put on as an afterthought, and as a result, you get quite a compromise in the design. And GoCycle, we've coined the phrase "no compromises." So it's light and it's incredibly well balanced, and it's also very, very well thought out. Lots of little things, for example, like the cleanliness of the design, how the cables are all lead internally, so they're not getting caught on walls or they're not there to corrode, and as a result it's very, very low maintenance. You can see that the chain also is all fully enclosed. So this is it sort of half folded, not too, doesn't take too long at all to get to this point, and then actually it's locked onto its base by this here. So I open the little thumb screw and I can take the product off. And then I've got a little dance, okay? So with my front leg, just put it over vertical, line the two parts of the shock up here, deploy the kickstand, and all I've now got to do is put the wheels on and we're away, okay? So what you can see straight away is not a folding bicycle, it more sort of assembles. It's not a Brompton, it's not something you're going to do on a station platform, but it's certainly something that you can do on a Friday to put into the boot of your car or to put into your motorhome or something. It takes about a minute to get it from its fully assembled form into its folded state, and pretty simple to do. The only tool that I used was a 4mm Allen key to adjust the saddle clamp there, and that's it. The wheels are very uniquely designed in that you've got 3 cams here, eccentric cams. They must all be fully open before the wheel can attach or detach from the bike, okay? So with them all fully open, simply put them on the hub and then go around and close them off one at a time. And I want to make sure, and I'm going to spin this round for the camera's benefit, that all 3 of those cams are fully closed, and that I've got a secondary lock here which I can just put over to one side, this little red cap, and that makes sure that they are completely locked and can't open accidentally or unnecessarily. So open the cap, open each of the cams, making sure that they're all fully open. I'm going to lift the front of the bike this time, place the wheel on, and then go around 1, 2, 3. So, having inserted the saddle and seat post, folded up the handlebars and popped the wheels on, the bike's now ready to ride. Give you a bit of a background or an idea of the product then. We'll start with the front. This is the motor here. It's a 250 watt continuous brushless motor in the front hub, meaning that actually ultimately it's 2-wheel drive. You're powering the rear wheel through your pedal action, and the front wheel is being powered by the motor. And it's being powered in a number of different ways. You've obviously, there's a torque sensor in the bottom bracket. And that does exactly what it says on the tin. It senses the amount of torque that you're putting into the product. The harder you're working, the more assistance it's going to give you. So for example, on the way up a hill, when you're working quite hard, it's going to assist you more than if you're going along on the flat or downhill, when, let's be honest, you don't need the assistance, okay? You've also got a little throttle here, and to top up your assistance, you can pull that back and get a bit of a boost up a hill, around a bus, away from traffic lights, that kind of thing, okay? The GoCycle is actually pre-programmed with 4 different modes. City, Eco, On Demand and Custom. We'll have a look at those in a bit when I go through the app as well, because it also has integrated Bluetooth and you can connect to it with your phone or smart device, Android or Apple, and edit the way that you ride the product. Okay, that's quite important. So, back to the motor, up the one-piece front fork here, up the stem, and as I've already mentioned, it's very, very clean. All of the cables are led internally, which is great for 2 reasons. Obviously, first, aesthetically, But second, in terms of function, because the cables are enclosed, you're not catching them on walls when you're leaning up against it, and they're not being corroded by the elements, okay? Which means, again, ultimately, that it's very, very low maintenance. It's not maintenance free, there's no such thing as a maintenance free bike, let's be honest, but very low maintenance. We kind of coin it as the wipe clean bike, okay? Following up the stem, you've got this part here, and if I turn the bike on, you've got a lithium ion battery inside the frame here, and this is the back of the battery, so I just press and hold the button here for a couple of seconds, looking at the dash, and you'll see the dash light up. Very Knight Rider-esque, with the lights flashing backwards and forwards here, but this is in its sort of screensaver state, standby. If I twist either one of these adjusters on the handlebars, you'll see now that I've gone to this screen. Again, for the benefit of the camera, probably, this is dissected into 3 areas. Okay, on the left side, we've got our battery charge state. So 0 to 10 LEDs, 0 being empty, obviously, 10 being fully charged. Okay, this one's fully charged, which is great. In the center, we've got our gear shift selector. So this is first gear, and with this side, I can go second gear, third gear. So it's got 3 speeds. Okay, you can hear the servo changing, and it's a 3-speed Shimano Nexus. So it's a Shimano product which is designed for us by them and produced there on the GoCycle. You'll also notice though that it's reset back to first, and it's done that automatically through predictive shifting. The product knows what speed it's doing and will change the gears dependent on that speed. So if you're coming down into the traffic lights, it will go 3, 2, 1, and you're there in first, ready to scoot off again. You're never in the wrong gear with GoCycle, which is pretty handy. On the right side, when you do get going, your speed is displayed with 1 LED equaling approximately 2 miles per hour. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. The chart there. Okay? Okay. All right. I've already mentioned here that you've got a lithium-ion battery inside the frame. That's the full length of that front frame. It's approximately 300 watt-hours. Okay. And coming back to that sort of no compromise design as well, because it's been designed from that clean piece of paper, we've considered all the balance and the ride also. So I can actually pick the product up from the middle. It's perfectly balanced, front and fore and aft, which means not only is it a good ride, you're not getting that big heavy back of the product over corners, but actually it's easy to carry, which is a consideration, of course, carrying up into your apartment, lifting it into your motorhome onto the back of a rack or what have you. Moving towards the back of the product then, we've already talked about the torque sensor in here, we've talked about the Bluetooth, but this here is called the Clean Drive, okay? Again, bit of GoCycle language, but we've developed that, it does exactly what it says on the tin, patented technology. Inside here is a standard 7-speed bicycle chain that's running around a 32-tooth sprocket on the front, and a 12-tooth rear sprocket, and there's also in there another sprocket which is self-tension, a bit like an overhead cam. So ultimately this is an enclosed piece. It's not being attacked by the aggressive environment that you're riding in. The weather today is miserable, you think you've got that road of dirt, salts and the likes which corrode products, and never, I need to find some wood to touch, but in the sort of 8 or so years that we've been selling GoCycle, never once have we replaced the chain, okay, which is amazing in itself, okay. Again, wipe clean, you can carry it up into your house and that's it. Also consider that unlike crank drive products especially, because our motor is in the front wheel, when we're riding the GoCycle, we ride, then the motor comes on, it's actually lessening the strain on the chain drive. Crank-driven product, you're riding, and then the motor's helping you ride. Okay, so you're increasing the strain on the chain and on the drive components there, the cogs and the derailleurs and the likes, and you get a lot of wear and you get lots of broken chains and things. So again, coming back to that low maintenance piece. This one is set up in sort of commuter stance. You can see that it's got integrated lights here and here. But also, one of the key features of the product that we haven't mentioned, if I roll this one forwards and hold it, you'll see that the DRL, or the daylight running light, turns on. And actually we've got a low beam, a low flashing, a high beam, and a high flashing there also. That you can set the defaults for that. In some European countries, you're not actually allowed to have a flashing light, so that's dependent also. But you can set it up to conform to all the local standards in your territory.
Is this the class as the Commuter Plus package?
So this is it's a bit of a mix actually. I bought the mud guards in somewhere, they're over there. The base pack is the GoCycle, the kickstand, this little fold leg, which I'll explain what it does in a minute, and a little cable lock, which is there. Okay, so that's the base package. You then have the Commuter package, which is the integrated lights and mud guards, and then the Commuter Plus. There's a rod here for a pannier. You've got a integrated lock here. It's an Abus product which we've worked with to create a little holster. So you're never without your lock. Again, just coming back to that sort of convenience aspect. And also you have anti-theft bolts which you can put into the cams there to stop them opening. And if you can't open the cams, you can't steal the wheels. Another great thing about the GoCycle is this angle here. We call it Veganomics, that V that creates there between the handlebar stem and the saddle. Actually, because of this angle and its relationship with the bottom bracket, the higher that you bring the saddle and seat post, the longer the effective crossbar length is. So the taller the rider, the longer the reach, and it's really a one-size-fits-all. Great for people, families, husband and wife might be different sizes and sharing the product, but also fantastic for retailers where they don't have to stock up 10 different sizes of frames and things as well. Okay, so broad bash, very quick overview of the product, but have you got any questions?
The tyres, would you buy them direct from yourselves?
These come as standard. These are called performance tyres, GoCycle performance tyres. They're made by Reassembly, which is a Dutch tyre manufacturer. They've been developed to be very efficient. So they are very low rolling resistance and very, very light. I hand you that, for example. So that there, in the same way that the frame's been produced, that's an injection moulded magnesium alloy wheel. And then a very, very light tyre there as well to achieve that lightness and weight. You can change the tyres. It's a 20-inch wheel, a 406 millimetre wheel. So it is a BMX ultimately size wheel, and you could change that out for we recommend a Schwalbe Big Ben tyre, or you can do the Big Apple or Marathon Plus and things. With those, you're going to get a heavier tyre, but a thicker wheel, a thicker sidewall, thicker tread. So you're going to get negatives in terms of performance ultimately, but the positive is it's got a greater puncture resistance.
Will GoCycle get to a point where you can buy that tyre?
You can buy it with us anyway, yeah. But we consider it as a downgrade because obviously the development that's gone into this. In terms of performance and the likes.
Yeah, to keep performance, then we're going to go to GoCycle and get the same tyre.
Yeah.
Do you have a service with it sort of once a year or something, like to do the chain just to keep all that tension?
So as I mentioned, the chain is something that you don't really need to touch. It's lubricated during production and theoretically that's it for life, okay, which is fantastic. In terms of user maintenance, you may need to change the brake pads after a few thousand miles or something. Tyres and tubes, if you were to get punctures and things, but other than that there's very little to do. We've got a maintenance schedule. We recommend after the first 100 miles that it's checked by your retailer, and then 500 miles thereafter. And the dashboard will actually flash to give you a reminder at that instance.
Have you had to change any batteries on them, or have they all been?
We're getting to the stage where earlier versions are now changing their batteries. Batteries are batteries, they don't last forever. It's relatively easy to change. All I need to do is that, I can remove the cap here using a 3mm Allen key, disconnect a black and red Anderson connector, and slide the battery out. It takes about 30 seconds or something to do. Certainly something that the user can do, definitely something the retailer can do. Batteries are available for earlier versions of GoCycle, the G2. They can now buy this battery, which is an upgrade. So the old one was 232 watt hours, so you're getting approximately another 25% capacity, which roughly translates to range. Yeah.
Where's it charges on?
Charge. So in the back of the battery here, you plug it in to charge it there.
Got you.
You plug it in like you would your laptop or mobile phone. This one takes 7 hours for a full recharge from flat.
Yeah.
But with it being lithium, obviously you can do partial charges as well. There's no memory effect in the battery there. So one thing, each GoCycle is uniquely identified by this here, the frame number, 360102. That's a sticky label. It's 7-year vinyl, so will last, but can obviously be torn off. The great thing about GoCycle is that number is also being emitted by Bluetooth. So if you turn on one of your Bluetooth devices here, you'll be able to see that number being displayed. So one of the great aspects of this is obviously on the anti-theft, the prevention of theft. Okay, I can connect to this bike and I can check all sorts of manner of things, and I can also, if I'm connected to the internet, see whether this bike has or hasn't been stolen. Okay, we actually, by registering the GoCycle when you initially buy that information goes up into our server, and so Lee Buxton owns GoCycle 360102, for example. Okay. Now, should you, God forbid, have your GoCycle stolen, you can tell your retailer or tell us directly. We'll put a note in our system, and that GoCycle is registered then as stolen. If anyone ever tries to connect to it with an app, two things happen. First of all, it gets immobilized, so the motor won't work and the gears won't shift. And the second thing, which is even better, is that we take the GPS data from their device, and that gets pinged back to us. Okay, so we're not tracking the bike per se, but we're tracking where it is. Okay, and getting the information from their device. And obviously, you need to be in Bluetooth range, and we've managed to give that information back to the authorities in a number of instances, and that's resulted in the return of some bikes, which is great. Also, the fact that we're still relatively small as a business, and we do ask for our retailers to consider the prevention of theft also by recording their frame numbers for the people that they sell to, but also refusing sales of components and accessories to people that can't produce that number. There's no reason why that should be missing. If they can't give a legitimate answer, then they don't get a charger. It's very simple. And of course, if they come in with that label missing and say, I don't know it, then the retailer can actually just check it on here also, which is great. So that's one advantage with the app. The other advantage is, as I've already mentioned, this is a reseller version of the app. So it enables me to do slightly more than the end consumer. Not a great deal more, but it allows me to connect to any bike in the world without actually registering it. Okay. The end consumer version, you register it, it becomes yours, and that's then that. Okay, but we're looking now, as I say, at one with slightly more authority, as it were. So you remember you're already saying about the modes: City, Eco, On Demand, and Custom. City and Eco are your very standard pedelec modes. Okay, so start riding, and via the torque sensor on the bottom bracket, it essentially sees how much effort you're putting in, and then will add a level of assistance according to your pedal effort. Eco just meaning that you have to work a little bit harder to get the same level of assistance. So it's more economical on the battery. You're going to get a greater range. Okay. On demand, exactly what it says on the tin. Okay, it's a normal bicycle, 3-speed bicycle all the time, until you bring that throttle back. Now, if you continue to pedal, and you're using that throttle, okay, you will get assistance. So this is the one when you're out on a really long bike ride, you're not really too bothered about having the assistance all the time, but actually, do you know what, I want a bit of assistance on this hill or around this bus or what have you, and away you go. Custom is where it gets really quite exciting, okay? As standard, that's delivered with Eco Plus. So again, via the torque sensor, but you're having to work even harder than Eco mode there in that instance. So it means a greater range. But using the app, we get this little graph here and we can actually edit that custom mode and completely change the way that we ride the GoCycle, and that's unique to you. So for example, along the bottom axis here, we've got our pedal effort. So this is you not pedaling hardly at all to get the motor to start. And this is you working like Lance Armstrong, puffing away up the hills before the motor will start, okay? Up here is where the motor reaches its maximum power. So this is you not working hard at all. The pedals are literally just turning and the motor is reaching its maximum assistance quite soon after. This, however, is you working a lot harder to gain that same level of assistance, okay? And ultimately that's sort of infinitely adjustable. And the great thing of this is, it might be that you're recovering from an injury, you've got rehabilitation issues there, and you want to maybe reduce the level of assistance over a given amount of time. So, say for example, you might start with maximum assistance. Obviously the negative to this is you're going to decrease the range, but over time you can increase the amount of effort that you're putting in, and increase the range and the efficiency of the product there. Okay. Other things that you can do here, you can decide whether the pedals must be turning for the motor to work, or whether the motor will work with the pedals not turning. So that's a button press there, and you can also adjust the maximum motor speed of the product here also, and you can see it goes way up to 40 kilometers per hour, which is 25 miles per hour. Now, obviously, that is against the EU regulation, and which limits it to 25 kilometers per hour, 15.5 miles per hour on public highway, and you will get an error message, or warning message saying that. If you're off the public highway on private land or what have you, you can say that's great and proceed. Yeah. Save those changes and send those to the GoCycle, and away you go.
Because we're not buying this product, are we? We're to
No.
test it.
So
It'll be a different app, won't it? That we
For all intents and purposes, what we're going to do is pretend that you have bought it. Okay. Lee, for example, can register this bike to himself and enter his details, and that will therefore be his. On the assumption that anyone else testing it uses his details, you have to get his name and email address exactly correct. You can also use the product, okay? To do that, I just need to make sure that we've deregistered this first. So I'll give the office a quick ring.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
Do you need to put it into pairing mode, or is it automatically in pairing mode?
Theoretically, it's automatically in pairing mode. However, I'm probably still connected to this. So that's another thing. I need to disconnect from that. Unpair, and then you should start to see it there.
So what I'll do? Do you want me to send you sort of my details?
We can theoretically do it all
Yeah.
here.
You don't need that on your ride, do you? Just that's to
No,
set the
absolutely.
custom settings, isn't it?
And more often than not, someone will reach a custom setting that they like, and then that's it forever anyway. There's normally a setting there on the handlebars anyway, but if they reach a custom setting that they like, then that's great. The bike also remembers the custom setting, and you can change between the modes should you wish, without the phone or device. To do that, hold both of the selectors back. It will first display which mode we're in. Okay, so we're in mode 4 at the moment, which is custom mode. Keep holding back till they all flash. And then what I can do, using this one, coming backwards, I can change between the modes. Now you'll notice that there are 4 lights down here, and it jumps to 12, and there's a bunch of LEDs up here also, different modes. So these are the 4 riding modes down here, and then you've got lots of troubleshooting, diagnostics and bits and bobs up here. Things like motor testing, sensor testing, wheel sensor testing, torque sensor testing, that kind of thing. There's also selecting between the predictive shifting on or off. There's the DRL settings in there as also. But say for example I want it in mode 1, I select it so there's one LED showing and then save that by holding the left side. It's a bit like programming a digital watch. So both back, it will first display the mode that we're in, wait till it all flashes. When it's flashed, select with the right one and save it with the left one. Okay, so that's a relatively simple process, but it's way more simple connecting to here and going 1, 3, 4, 1, and it will flash to confirm that on the dash. I can share that if you like, just very quickly.
Just to show I can't operate when other people are riding it.
Okay, so in terms of assembly and disassembly, it's not hard. It does take time, as with anything, to practice. But there is, in our opinion, a right and a wrong way to do it. Not a wrong way, but just an easier way.
It's a technique.
Technique, exactly. So what we do to start is we remove the wheels. Okay, the rear wheel is already off the ground because it's on the kickstand. And I need to open these 3 cams. If I open one cam all the way and continue opening it, I'll actually open the next, and the next, like that. So with them all open, I can remove the wheel. When the wheel's off, always close those down just to avoid them being broken, trodden on, or what have you in any case. Exactly the same on the front, but obviously I need to support the bike. Okay, and again, close those off. Okay. With the rear here, because this is a relatively new bike, I just need to compress the suspension a little and pull this pin. Okay, and this is where our dance starts. So, lose the kickstand. With the same foot, I'm just going to put a bit of weight on the back of the bike to the point where I just go over vertical. So the clean drive is just slightly over vertical. Then I can use the weight of the product to sort of fold itself. And you'll notice that this little badger here, the fold leg, has automatically deployed itself. Okay? If I then bring the pedals around, the opposing pedal, it will stand up on its own. Okay? This here, like that, is what we call the half fold. So if we're demonstrating it in a busy shop, or if, say for example, you want to bring it in and tuck it behind your sofa and you're not bothered about going much further, you can do this and you've made it considerably smaller in your apartment or what have you. If you want to go a bit further, it's pretty simple to do. Easiest with the handlebars continuing to face forward, because if we open the quick release here, give it a good old spin and it's not touching the frame. We'll take that all the way out, okay, and we'll just pop that to one side for a second. The saddle here, I can reduce or extend the height of the seat post using this 4mm Allen key at this point here. But to remove the saddle, for the benefit of the camera, it's just here. And what I do is find that there, undo a little, and what I'm doing is just opening the saddle clamp inside the frame, allowing me to take the saddle out, and I can pop that all together there. So it's pretty compact there. As I said, it's not a folding bike. There is a certain amount of assembly and disassembly required, but it's certainly not laborious in any way. And I've only used one tool, the 4mm Allen key, which is of course supplied with the product. Goes all the way into the frame, and you can hear that hard stop there. All right. So what we're doing with the Allen key, again, inside the frame, we're just going to turn that a little, just to clamp the seat post. Okay, we don't need to crank on it, all we need to do is just turn it enough so it's just not rotating. I can then pop my tool back up underneath the saddle for later. Alright, handlebars up and immediately facing forwards, because that's going to make my life easier when I put the quick release in, because I can get a full rotation here. I want to keep going around like this, okay, and I want to close it off in an angle here, which is a bit like a pizza, facing backwards there. We don't want it too low, because if we're turning a corner, it's going to contact the frame and may open, which isn't good for riding. Too high, it's probably going to be loose. That is of course adjustable with the clock nut on that side. All of this is in the instructions also, which I'll leave you with. This one here is the dance bit in reverse, so front foot to open up. There we are. Line the two parts of the suspension up, deploy the kickstand, and pop the wheels on. So, one thing I haven't mentioned, these are identical, the wheels, exactly the same front and rear. However, what we tend to do is we use a slightly different tyre pressure. The rear wheel is between 45 and 50, say, psi, and the front can be as low as 25 to 30 psi. The reason is these are balloon tyres, so it can be run with relatively low pressure, and ultimately it's sort of a compromise between comfort and performance. Okay, you have got suspension on the rear. There's an inch or 25mm of suspension here. It's a silicone elastomer. Again, it's maintenance free because there's no seals, no sort of parts to wear there. So we run the rear wheels at higher pressure, the front wheel at lower pressure. That's both good for comfort. It's going to be better for your wrists over the bumps, but also for the product itself. You're going to cushion the drive components, especially the motor, gearbox and clutch, over those potholes and things. Not that we're sort of saying that you should ride through potholes, of course. So, on like that, close these off, and exactly the same on the front. Open all three cams. Okay. 1, 2. Okay. The pin here, I can either pull up like this, or if I'm maybe not as heavy as I am, I can lose it off the kickstand and sit on it and just drop it in there. That pin's not an essential part of the product, but it's just a nice to have. It's good there to stop the two parts of the GoCycle coming apart there. Okay? Awesome. I've delivered this, I'll be taking this back with me, but this here has fixed pedals. If it had folding pedals, it fits on here, and then you have like a T-cozy section which goes over the top. It's like a very strong nylon material, a bit like surfboard bag, very thick waterproof material, and that zips around the bottom to keep the product completely enclosed. However, it is multifunctional, as I say. The caster wheels on the bottom can be removed, and we actually have customers mount these in their motorhomes, on their yachts, and even on the wall in the garage. So you can click the product in, you know it's nice and safe and all in one place. Right, the GoCycle, like other electric bikes, may have an interesting charging procedure. There's a right way and a wrong way to charge them. Reason being, there's something called a BMS, or a battery management system, inside the battery, which is a requirement of their design. And there's also a little bit of a brain in the charger. And like any good marriage, occasionally they have a bit of a fallout, okay? And it might be, for example, that your bike's been on charge, your GoCycle's been on charge, you ride away, you come back, and because you've left the charger plugged into the wall, the last thing that it remembers doing is charging a bike, okay? So it's not actually gonna charge, okay? It says, you've got charge, that's fine. Actually it hasn't. It's not clever enough to sort it out. So what you do, always plug the charger into the battery first, okay? That goes in there, okay? Then plug it into the wall and turn it on. The charger will then turn on, realise it's plugged into a GoCycle, realise that it needs charge, and away it goes. Okay. So in that instance that I've just explained, what you would do when you go for your ride, you would unplug it here, you would take it out the wall, so that when you come back, you put it into the GoCycle, into the wall, and that doesn't happen. Okay. That's the same with most electric bikes. It only will become a problem probably one time in 100, but when it doesn't charge, you get really grumpy, and then you ring us and say it's not charging. Okay. Yeah.
Can the battery be removed and charged independently of the bike? Should you need to?
We call it semi-permanent. Okay, it's
Okay.
designed to be charged in situ.
Got you.
You've seen how easy it is to remove the wheels. You've seen how light it is to carry it up into your apartment or anything. Other products, being careful not to name names, have quite heavy batteries, which might be 10, 11 kilos in themselves. And that's great that you can carry that up the stairs and charge it. But when you've whipped the wheels off and whipped the salon seat post off, the product is actually only about 11 kilos in any case. Quite easily manageable, and you can charge that in your house. It's not like you're dragging a bike with greasy chain, muddy components up into your house. The reason is, if you remember when you were a kid, the remote control car batteries, which are cells with basically a thermoset plastic wrapped around them, very, very light. That's exactly what we've got here, basically. Okay, there isn't a big metal box in that battery, again, we're keeping the lightness down. That's our box, okay, the frame, and keeps it very well protected. And obviously if it's out of the frame, then you're increasing the potential for it to be dropped, damaged, dropped in a bath, you know, stabbed with a biro, stupid things like that.
Yeah, okay.
So it lives in the frame.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, you can remove it. It takes about 30 seconds. I did demonstrate that, and you can certainly replace it yourself